Well, been playing on the brakes. Now that we have an entire front new suspension on it. The old brakes that were on the car in version 1 of the 6.1 and disc brake conversion, but it had a modern disc brake like the 72 and newer Chryslers had big disc brakes on it. It still didn't stop that great, mostly for the power the car had. So that's one of the, upgrades we've wanted to have. It does have rear discs, and it actually had that conversion on it from before, but it never stopped the greatest. The master cylinder was there. And then if you know, when you look on master cylinders, you have your front and your rear reservoirs. And then if you have like drum or disc, your discs are more pressure to the front and then to the back. And then you also have your diverter valve down underneath. Well, this weekend I was fighting, bleeding, and I remembered from when I was fighting this car with the bad brakes before, I put an all-new master cylinder brake booster. I actually put an electric, more vacuum on it. Thought maybe there wasn't enough vacuum on the previous version. This car produces a ton of vacuum, or this motor produces a ton of vacuum. And so I actually switched the diverter, and I put the front port to the rear and the rear brakes to the front on this master cylinder, because a lot of times your first port is the more pressure, so the more pressure needs to go to the front and the back, and the one closest to the front of the car is actually the reservoir for the rear. Each master cylinder is a little bit different. You want to check what they are. I had this thing completely sucked out with my vacuum, had all the liquid pulled through all the lines, but I could not get the front to bleed. I reversed these, couldn't get it to bleed regardless of which way it was. Pulled the master cylinder off, put it up here on the bench, and bled, and actually it's leaked all its fluid out since the other day when I did this. And the reservoir quote that I had going to the rear, as soon as you push, it was pumping that well, and it was circulating. This reservoir would just push and come back, push and come back, push and come back. It would not push, and I could not get it to circulate. Tried to bench bleed it, blew it, screwed with it. Decided to, toss it. It's probably some off-brand, no-name, fancy chrome online thing anyway, so I could have pulled the seals here, pulled it out, maybe changed the seal, rebuilt the piston inside. But I decided, you know what, why not? We'll just change everything else that we're messing with. And, I'm sorry about that. We'll pull that across, and I've went in Mr. Pocketbook and had to go with, and you can go with any brand master cylinder, but I decided to, this is the same valve that I have in the car. It's an extra one I have in the shelf. I took that with me to make sure that I could get the right ports, so that I now have the right ports to the front and rear. This particular one from Wilwood basically has a primary, secondary port, and it's the running cord off, is actually the bigger reservoir in it is definitely the front brakes. So this one, the front is the front and the back is the back. So I need to re-bend some pipes, put these on, and I'm hoping I should have good brakes here in a few minutes. So we will take that, throw it up in the vise, bench bleed it, and throw it in the car and see what we get. And Mr. Hank Hill, which if any of you don't like Hank Hill, I don't like you. Hank is the man. We all need to live like Hank. Oh, anyways, let's get that master cylinder thrown over here. I'll listen to a little Hank Hill, because propane and propane accessories are a good morals of life. Well, not sure if this is important or not, but if you look at these adapter ports, so I need that size for that size hose to go to the front brake, but the one that they supply with the kit is too small, and then I have to go small to big and that. But if you look at the end of these, see how these are flat, and this Wilwood system is designed to take these washers, and you put the washer over the top of that, and the washer is what seals between here, and it uses this surface as the sealing surface. Same with the plugs on the backside that you don't use. And if you look at like a master cylinder like this, and you look inside your ports are tapered for that flared fitting to connect, just like your adapter here seals in too, which this is the size adapter that I need. But if I screw that into here, oh gosh, you screw that into here, this bottoms out into that hole, and if you look, the hole is on the edge where that seal goes down, and you actually restrict that. So if you ever use these, and you use these adapters, you put this in, you might get a tiny bit through that hole, and it might kind of work, or it might not, and you might think you're not getting brake pressure, but there's no way that's going to seal properly. So if you notice my hand, I was just using a grinder, and I actually have another one of these. So I took a grinder, and I was grinding this down so that I can now put that washer on. So I can now take this, put this washer here, and then clean that mating surface out. And it fits. It fits right when I use two hands. So you put that there, put this in here, and I got that to thread on nicely. And now that threads in there. And if you look, I've got some metal filings inside that, so I still need to take some carb cleaner and clean that out. So now I can pull that tight, and then the washer is still going to be my mating surface, and that's going to seal my pressures so that my pressures are here. And so now I have the right adapter for there and there. Hopefully, maybe. So if I didn't, I would probably have to, back to like that. You see that taper in there? That taper fit down in there, and that's what sealed that. But yeah, all the adapters that came from Wilwood have this flat surface that go to a gasket or a washer style. So like these would not seal into that. So, all right, let me go blow this out, put this on, put it on the bench, bleed it. Hopefully I won't be bleeding. Okay, we have her bled. The hose has just popped out. So we take the cap, put the cap back on, lightly put the screws on the top. It kind of puts a little bit of a vacuum on it so it won't bleed out. So that when we decant this off, we're not dripping fluid everywhere, because brake fluid will eat paint. You do need to put the little plug in here so that when the booster hits that, that's for a booster style. And that'll push onto that. Let's get her in the car. And we're now in. Fought the heck out of my, out of these lines here and here. I put this on dry and bent lines and fought and made lines to get it as close as I can to put it in. But you got to make sure you're really square and really straight getting them into this. Mostly this fitting here is aluminum, so you got to really make sure you're not cross-threading that on. Now, right now, what I have gotten done is this bottom line below on the diverter valve I have somewhat loose, and I'm just letting it sit here for a few minutes. And basically I've had tiny little bubbles pop out of here. I'm going to let it sit for a little bit more. I'm going to push on the brake pedal just a little bit, just to push a little fluid down and kind of leak out down underneath. Then I'll put a little soapy water and stuff down there and rinse that out. And then I'll go back to putting the suction on the master cylinders and suck from the master cylinders, and I should have brakes. Hopefully don't need to get somebody out here and play the down and up and bleed the brakes, but we will see where that goes. So I got my little suction gun here. I've already done one full cup on the passenger side, or the driver's side. I'm on my second cup, and you want to pump it until you get, 20 to 25 pounds, and then you watch that hose, and you watch it start bleeding in. And I'm going to give it a few more pumps. And you just kind of watch for air bubbles. See the air bubbles kind of coming. And we want to make sure you get no air bubbles out. And the awesome part is, a couple days ago I was spending hours trying to bleed, and I kept getting air, kept going back and forth. And it definitely was a mess zone. I'm getting good fluid, good pressure within seconds. I've already got good everything coming out of it. I'm still at 20 pounds. I've got Those bubbles just working their way through. You see the foam in the container. It's kind of working their air out of that. It's pushing through, pushing through, pushing through. And I'm getting pretty solid fluid. I'm actually going to set this down while it's there. You want to kind of do it in such a manner that the cup stays up so it keeps looping. And then I come over here. I've got fluid draining down. I'm going to add a little more fluid so I don't suck it out, because actually last time I was doing this so much, I pulled air with that trying to bleed it down and had to do it all over, but I kept getting air. It would never pressurize. I have good fluid going all the way through it. I've got good air coming all the way through. Now I have no air in my line. My pressure is still high. And basically I've pulled fluid all the way to it, so I'm going to now release it. Try not to make a mess. Hold this on the upward side. I'm going to turn this off so I can go drain this. And it should be done. So I've pumped them a few times by hand, just manually. Go to the bleeder and just crack it, and I get just a little tiny pop, a little pop of air and a little squirt, but with no one else inside pushing it. I actually have a much, much, much firmer pedal. The pedal hits hard right away. So I think she'll stop now. Maybe I'll go inside and see if I can get the Weefy Poo to push on the pedal and put it in there and finish that up. I think that's just, when you push real hard on the pedal, you can just feel just a tiny bit of, when you push down, you can just kind of feel there's like that hollowness in the center of the pedal, which is, that's air inside the line of compressing that air in the hydraulics, as you want pure, pure fluid. And the line going all the way back to the car, my little suction cup thing, doesn't seal real tight to the bleeder, so it sucks air through it when you're trying to suck, so it doesn't get everything through. But massive improvement, very good. But to be totally honest, I'm really bummed I have Wilwood Brakes. I'm not a big brand name thing. I really like the old brakes that were Chrysler brakes, of making the brakes work for what were there, and they were big Chrysler brakes, but I did want to go with the different suspension, the cornering handling, and what I was trying to make this car do. I kind of hate that I put the same front end that everyone puts in these cars. It's just because everyone does it and these kits are available. There was a lot more of a bolt-in and it's just going to fit, just going to work application. So that's great. I hate doing what everyone does. To be honest, I'm kind of bummed that I went with this engine. So many people are putting this engine in cars now that it's kind of been done. Definitely on the next car, the next thing I'm doing is big block motor, back to just using old parts and using used things to make things work. This car is going to be an absolute ball. This is being done to drive. This is being done to have fun in. I don't want to be stressed out over it and not enjoy it. One of the problems I had with it before, you know, you're nervous driving it. You take it somewhere. You didn't want to park it anywhere because of what it is. Got to get that out of the system. If I can't do a donut with this, rip it around and have a fun time, why have it? So I don't want to trash it. I don't want to destroy it, but I do want to have fun with it. I'm thrilled that I have good brakes. I hate that they're a brand name that is on every car show and everything out there. Be honest, it's real possible I might just rattle can the name through the wheels, but I don't know if you'd see through those wheels to see what they are. I definitely don't want red calipers and all that kind of stuff. Those are 4-piston because there's a piston on each side of those brakes. They're mid-grade stopping power brakes, things that way. Should definitely be better than the originals, or what was on, well, the original that I had on it, the late 70s Chrysler brakes. I didn't need drilled and slotted rotors or any of that kind of goofy stuff. But that's the brakes. It should stop. It is a mangled mess. I did get the AC lines done last night after work. They're just kind of flopped up here and thrown around. But my AC is now repressurized, like I was saying before. This is an engine bay. You have engine things. You're going to have wires. You're going to have hoses. Before, all the hoses and stuff went behind this. I had a cowl piece here. The hoses went into the fender that way. The dryer was actually up under the fender. What actually blew my AC before is when I was turning hard, my tire hit the dryer over a bump, and it like tweaked the line, and I blew the AC line under the fender. So I lost that. My fuel filter, you know, this could definitely go down underneath the rail, and it's designed for that fuel line to go right off the firewall and down, put it down underneath the firewall. Then you can never get to it. This car sits so low. And right now it's sitting way higher because it's on the lift, but it will sit down low and underneath, and you'll never get to that fuel unless you put it on a lift and get to that fuel filter. Plus, if you hit a bump or a speed bump, worst thing in the world, we go over a bump and rip that filter off and have it spray gas on your hot exhaust and catch your car on fire. So it's right there. So that is that. The car now stops. One more step. Now I can technically I can throw the tires on it right now, fire it up, back it out of the driveway, back it out in the shop, stop it, pull it forward, and it'll go forward, back, stop. The exhaust is in, the motor runs, the motor somewhat shifts. I need to get up underneath and figure out the 8-speed transmissions, fueling, pressure for to fill up the fluids. There's a whole little sequence of putting it in gear, taking it out of gear, pressurizing it, getting it warm, pulling the plug, adding fluid, dribbling it everywhere for your $40 a quart 8-speed transmission fluid. But we'll do that on another day. Have a great one. I'm going to go have dinner.
And let me get this, also crossed. Wilwood makes amazing products.
That's all they do, is they make brakes. So they've got universal kits and they make things for everything. I'm really not bashing on their products. As much as I'm throwing stuff away and throwing in the garbage can, I put those on because I want good quality brakes on the vehicle. I was just basically saying, kind of hate brand name stuff. I hate doing what other people do. This thing's going to stop amazing. And they are a good product. Could I probably gone with a different brand, different thing, and made really good brakes also? Yes. But I was kind of also tired of mismatchy and doing all sorts of other things. So we now have that. But that's also why I went with the not shiny and the black finish. Because brakes just need to stop the vehicle. And stopping is safe. That's all. Done ranting. Pretty wheel.